You seem hungry. Good thing your table is ready with Saturday Omaha.
Saturday Omaha.
Eat this. This is Dave with Saturday Omaha, and I am sitting in the palatial KIOS, currently tea brewing studios with Tim Smith of the Tea Smith. And Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing great today. You know, it's a nice cool day, great day for tea, so
Yeah.
good to be here with you.
So this is kind of neat. So this is wonderful because you reached out a little bit. You were actually listening to our episode with Isaiah from Archetype Coffee, and you're like, hey, Dave, you want to talk about some tea? And of course I want to talk about some tea. So thanks for reaching out and connecting with me. I really
Yeah, it made
appreciate
perfect sense. He's a great customer of ours, and even when he was describing some of his coffees, he made some references to different types of teas. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, give me a little bit of background. So, I have been to the Tea Smith. You have a wonderful, multi-layered shelf of many teas. Wonderful staff that is great about consulting about teas and things like that. But how did the Tea Smith get started? How did it all begin?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy overwhelming, isn't it, when you walk in and see 150 different teas? And that was the experience I had, too. Most of my life, I was a coffee drinker. I still really do enjoy good coffee. But my wife really doesn't drink much coffee. She didn't like the way the acids and the caffeines hit it. So
Sure.
I was traveling for business in a former life, and it was around her birthday. And I'd been married long enough to know you don't come home empty-handed at certain times after you're traveling. So I was out looking for a gift for her, and I stumbled across a store selling loose leaf tea.
Okay.
I thought, hey, this is kind of cool. You know, she's got some of these tea bags and stuff in the cupboard and herbs and things, but I hadn't seen loose leaf teas. So I brought her a few loose leaf teas in a teapot, brought it on home, and she says, oh, this is great. You got to try it. And I said, yeah, I'm sure it's good tea. But then I did try it, and I said, oh, hey, this isn't just that brown water in a bag. This has actually got some character to it.
Yeah.
So I started drinking up all of her teas, which means that I needed to go out to the internet to find some more tea.
Yeah.
And of course, as you know, on the internet, you can learn everything.
Sure.
Some of which is even actually accurate.
Very
but
true.
not only did I start finding teas, but then I started kind of studying about tea as well. Found out it's the most consumed beverage in the world. There's all these health properties and stuff for it, besides the great taste and everything.
Yeah.
And I noticed that, and of course, this is like 20 years ago.
Sure.
And I noticed that specialty teas were starting to do not unlike specialty coffees had done. You know, before Pete's and Seattle's Best and those people, the quality of coffee in the U.S. wasn't much.
Yeah.
But they really started building this whole great coffee shop culture that we enjoy today.
Yeah.
Same thing was starting to happen with tea. I saw some of the better teas, especially teas, starting to arrive into the country. So I thought, you know what? This is a beverage that's really good.
Yeah.
It's healthy. It's consumed all over the world. And the industry was really young, and there was nobody else foolish enough to be doing tea in Omaha. So that's what we started about 18 years ago, and we've been drinking on the job ever since.
Oh, my goodness. That's fantastic. Well, and speaking of drinking on the job, much like the coffee episode with Tim here, he's actually brought some teas. We'll get to those in a second. So if you hear any boiling or steaming water in the background, we're actually going to have like live drinking of tea on the show. But and I have to ask, you are Tim Smith. Did the name Tea Smith come from yourself? Because, you know, I think it would. I hope so.
It did kind of. Actually, you know, when we had decided, okay, we're going to start a tea shop.
Yeah.
It was about the time we were taking a family vacation, heading on out to Colorado with a bunch of my young kids, okay? And so we're in the car. And if you've been on family vacations with kids, you know how crazy it can get. But we're trying to come up with all these different names, you know, things like, sweet tea, you know, different things. You know, of course, you got kids, fatality, you know, just all these goofy things off the wall. So you'd be driving along, and all these names would be written down and whatnot, and then you'd go quiet. Then you'd come up with a bunch more names, and eventually we pulled into a little town in Colorado.
Okay.
And the restaurant was called the Village Smithy.
Okay.
You know, Smithy, quality ingredients, quality craftsmanship, and the name just happened to be there as well. So the Tea Smith was born out of that.
That's perfect.
Yeah,
that's
fine.
perfect. That's perfect. So, and when did the Tea Smith open its doors?
We
roughly
opened right at the end of 2004.
2004.
Yeah.
Okay. And have you been located in the same location there?
That was our second location, but we started that one like in 10 months after we opened. That's been our primary location since then.
Okay. And for everyone listening, what is the exact address when they need to come out and find some tea?
Yeah, it's 345 North 78th Street. So it's just north of Dodge in the Tower Plaza there on 78th.
That's fantastic. And so the Teasmith, born and raised in Omaha, and here you are, been providing tea for all of these years. So
Yeah.
did you have, I think you said 135. Did you start with 135 teas, or what did the Teasmith look like when you started smithing?
Well, that was crazy because, we were drinking it and didn't know much about tea at all.
Yeah.
So started studying the industry and reaching out to people to learn about it. And the people that are in the tea industry are really very nice. It's a small industry, a specialty tea industry is small industry, really nice people willing to share their knowledge and their information and stuff. So we started trying to find some different types of teas, got some nice sources, and I suppose we stared out with, gosh, I don't know, 50 or 60 or so probably.
Wow. Yeah.
And then over the years, it's just kind of morphed to, 100, 130, 150. And of course, they change with the seasons.
Sure.
So, yeah, there's always something different that keeps us entertained.
That's wonderful. And so with all of those different varieties of tea or flavors and things, from whence do they hail throughout the world? Yes. As you have so many different types of tea.
Yeah, that's really interesting because people see, white teas or green teas or black teas, and they think they're a different plant, but they actually all come from the same plant.
Oh, okay.
So all tea comes from a plant called the Camellia sinensis.
Okay.
And it's a matter of how it's processed that makes it a white tea, a yellow tea, an oolong tea, or a green tea, or a black tea. And not unlike wine, because people say, well, how can all tea come from one plant? Wine comes from grapes. Tea comes from the Camellia sinensis plant, but it's a matter of the varietal, the skill of the maker, the terroir, the particular seasons that year, that type of thing that have a huge impact on the style, the quality, and the flavors of the tea.
Awesome. And you said terroir, so Terriior. I think that's a word that I actually just learned reading. There's a book, it's called Pizza School, and they were talking about, I think it was tomatoes. But so that is the geography, water, and structure of the land where the item is produced that causes flavor to happen. So in the case of like a San Marzano tomato, it's grown in like the soils of Mount Vesuvius or whatever. So same thing with tea then too. It takes on characteristics of its environment, right?
It really does.
Yeah. Oh, that's wild. And so sitting before me, actually, I have 4 small little samplers of tea. Mm-hmm. They all look very different. I have one that is a more grassy green. I have some that are darker, some that have golden flecks in them. And so these are all from the same tea plant, but then varietals or how tell me a little bit about that. How do they differ? And if you can too, the white versus black tea versus, tell me a little bit about that, because this tea, it's called a white tea, but it doesn't look, it's a much darker hue. So what is the difference?
Yeah. So that's one of the things that really attracted me to tea was the wide variety of the tastes of tea. You go from the white teas that are light and floral to black teas that are robust, and some of them are even smoky, and just everything in between.
Yeah.
So real quickly, a white tea is the least processed of all.
Okay.
Traditionally, it only comes from the northern part of Fujian, China. And what they would do is at certain times in the spring, they will go out there and they will pluck the leaves, dry them, and sort them, and that's all that happens to a white tea.
Oh, wow.
So very, very minimally processed, and hence you've got a pretty light flavor as well.
Gotcha.
Okay? The next step then it would be a green tea where they pluck them and then they let them to sit and kind of wither a little bit so the leaves become pliable, and then they can shape them a little bit like gunpowder tea or twist them and this type of thing. But they heat them up and dry them very quickly so they don't oxidize. They don't interact with the oxygen.
Oh.
Okay. Oolong teas are amongst my favorites. Those live in the world between green teas and black teas. Okay. Green teas that aren't oxidized, black teas that are fully oxidized. And the oolong teas can be 15% oxidized, 80% oxidized, or whatever. Tons and tons of work to go into them. So they'll take them, they'll pluck the leaves, they'll let them wither, and then they will start to dry them and let them kind of interact with the oxygen a little bit. And this oxidation, the chemical process between the teas the enzymes in the teas and the oxygen that start to develop different flavors. It's what actually makes the fully black teas much stronger in flavor.
Oh, goodness.
So they take those oolong teas, and the one we've got sitting in front of us, it probably took the artist 25 hours of constant moving and tending and shaping to make it, and it's all really cool because the high end teas like that, they're all done by sense. Okay, he can smell it, he can see it, he can feel what it looks like, how it's coming along, and so he'll speed it up or slow it down or whatnot. And then after they get it to where they want, they'll heat it and they'll roll it into very tight little spheres like you see on the one there. That actually open up quite a bit. And then some of them are all smoked over a charcoal wood and that type of thing, so they get all sorts of great flavors. Fabulous array of flavors there. Black teas then are the ones that after they've plucked them, allow them to wither, they'll roll them around a little bit and allow them to fully oxidize, and that's what develops that stronger flavor that we're all used to in the black teas. And
so really the name of your place, the Tea Smith, the Smith part of that, being a blacksmith or goldsmith or creating these teas, is really applicable to how they're created, because when we're talking coffee with the beans and roasting and things like that, and so a person must have to really understand the craft to be able to adjust the oxidation level and I'm assuming how quickly things are drying out or not, and when you were saying that leaves or may need to be moved from place to place, I'm assuming that's to adjust moisture loss or those things to kind of get the right balance.
Yeah, if you think about it, you're going to try and dry these things, and you've got different weather conditions.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe today it's really hot, or tomorrow it's a little cooler, or the humidity is this and that. So yeah, it's amazing to watch these tea makers at work at the source, the pride that they take into it, and just like any professional, they make it look deceptively easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, have you got to, now mentioning the tea makers, have you been able to travel like throughout the world or places to go visit some of these areas?
We have been fortunate enough to visit some of the makers. COVID really kind of put a kibosh on some of our trips lately, but we've had a chance to go to a little bit into China, into Taiwan, into Japan, a few of those places to see some of the gardens there. And so that's been really special because, we're not a big company by any means. But once you go there and the people see that you appreciate what they're doing and you understand it, and then you're going to share that with your customers, they will send back some pretty cool stuff with us that awesome. You may not be able to get if you're a huge company where you need, thousands and thousands of tons of tea to make something in tea bags. But if we can get some small stuff that's quite unique and special that we can share with our customers.
That's wonderful. Yeah. That's wonderful. And so, wow. And so all those different varieties and connecting with the maker that's spending hours or days, or I guess that's a good question, is from, the time that tea leaf is ready to pick and do something with, about how long does it take for, well, I guess a white tea may not take as long, but kind of what's an average life cycle for the different types of teas from plant to cup?
Yeah, really from the time that they're plucked until the time that they are completely finished and in the bag. It's a matter of just hours or a very few days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really quick. It's a lot different than coffee, because coffee, they take the beans and then the green beans can sit for quite some time. Uh-huh. With tea, it's all done in a very short amount of time.
Oh, very interesting. Yeah. Very interesting. And then and I'm assuming they have to package them such that they can make the trip from Japan or China or Taiwan or wherever they're being shipped from too. So do we have any tea producers in the US? Is that a crop that we grow? I don't know.
They've grown tea in Hawaii for a long time over the years. It went away for a while, but there's some really interesting specialty tea things going on there. Bigelow has got a little farm in Charleston, South Carolina. It's more of a tourist type of thing.
Yeah.
But there are some people that are actually starting to produce some specialty teas, especially in the Northwest and in the South. Like in Mississippi and whatnot, where the climate is not so extreme. So very, very small handmade batches so far, but some cool stuff and a lot of care and attention are going into these.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So does the cut of the tea or how, because I'm looking at these four here, they're widely different. None of these four look the same I wouldn't say they're even the same plant. And I know as we discussed, they are. But how does the cut make a difference in the tea or the physical preparation of the tea, I guess?
Well, these are all specialty teas. They're all handmade teas. So, for example, most people use tea bags. Okay?
Sure.
And those are just basically things where they've gone through and gotten high production, and they'll take, the top leaves and the bud, which is the really good stuff. But then they'll take the lower leaves and the stems, and they'll grind it all up, and you've got that dust in your tea bags, okay?
Ah, okay.
And so that's why you can dump a tea bag in water, and then brown water comes out, and you get some flavor and whatnot. With these, as they unfurl, because they've taken like 97% of the moisture out. Okay?
Yeah.
And as they unfurl, they expand quite a bit. So as we'll see later when we get a chance, like that oolong tea that we've got, it looks like a little tiny, smaller than a pea. Just a very small, tight roll. There's actually 2 full tea leaves about an inch and a half long on each of those.
Oh.
So it expands. It's an immense expansion on that. Really cool to see.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
So before the tea leaf is picked, about how big is a typical tea leaf, give or take a little bit?
Yeah, it depends on the varietal. But what you really want are from the tea plant is just the top tender leaves and a bud. Okay? And they could be as small as maybe an inch or so, up to a couple inches, thereabouts, depending on the varietal.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then after they pick the ones at the top, do they just let the top leaves grow back, or do they trim the plant and then you get newer top leaves? Or I guess, or how does that work out?
Yeah, I mean, the tea plant, if you leave it on its own, it will grow for literally hundreds of years.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay. But when you see pictures of tea fields, you see them kind of nice cascading waves of green about waist high. Well, they keep that's what they call the plucking table level, because they can go by there and hand pick the teas or harvest them.
Oh, wow. So if
so
left unchecked, do they get very, very tall?
They do. Oh. They do. They'll grow 30 or 40 feet.
Dear.
There's one tea called that we have called monkey picked oolong. Okay. And since the tea leaves are, the best teas are high up in there, they train monkeys to actually go up and pick the tea leaves and throw them back down.
Oh my gosh! So that's not even a clever name. They actually send.
So you actually believe that? I'm sorry. It is. It's a great story, but
that's funny.
Basically they do have to get on ladders and whatnot and go up there and get those little leaves. So the story behind it is they'll only pick the best leaves out of it. Yeah.
Oh, that's too funny.
So there's all sorts of fun names for from teas, because it's coming from all these different Asian areas that have been pretty creative in some of the names.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Since we're into our show and definitely have some tea talk, should we try a brew on a cup since we have a couple to go through?
I'm always up for drinking some tea.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we will we'll work this out, and we're gonna keep the mics rolling, and we'll see what happens here. And let's get to some tea.
All righty.
Cooler water. Perfect. So we've got an electric kettle, and Todd, if you're listening to this, we are safely away from the electronic equipment. But Tim is pouring us got a couple of ceramic teacups, and then looks like some small strainers with little lids on there. About how long does a typical brew take on some tea? I guess we'll get you back on the mic since things are happening there.
Well, actually, some of them can go for 30 seconds if you do it what they call gong fu style, which is a very common way to do it in China, where you'll brew the tea for short periods and then do like 5 or 6, and the leaves open up slowly, and the tastes change each time you reinfuse it. Okay.
Yeah.
But beyond that, if you're making tea for yourself at home or whatnot, it's really pretty simple. White teas, green teas, oolongs, those will go for anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes at water that's about 180 degrees.
Okay.
Black teas and then herbals, 5 minutes with water right off the boil. Okay.
Gotcha.
So the white teas, the green teas, they're a little more fragile since they're not processed as much. So you really do want to use a little cooler water and a little bit shorter time as a general rule.
Gotcha. And which tea are we brewing currently?
So I actually started 3 of them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Multitasking here.
I love it.
Yeah. So I started we have a white tea from Colombia.
Okay.
Which is quite surprising. This is the only organic specialty tea farm in Colombia.
Wow.
So we've got that one. I brought a Katagani Kukicha.
That's a heck of a name there. Nice.
It is.
Love it.
It is a twig tea made from the Gyokuro tea in Japan.
Okay.
And then, of course, the other one that we started up with was the Taiwan True Cream Oolong. That's the one you smelled earlier on.
It had the buttery popcorn notes.
It smells like buttered popcorn. So let's see what we got going here.
I love it. Okay, so is this one the white tea that we're starting with here?
No, actually, this is the green tea, the kukicha. Okay.
Okay.
You'll get a little bit of that umami aroma to it, and a little bit of the scent of the ocean. Japan is a small island, and so that's you get a lot of that nori flavor to it.
That's
as well.
100% what I was just gonna. I mean, the green color definitely invokes a little bit of that thought too. But yeah, that nori essence there, and I love some good sushi. And that we're gonna take a sip here. That's good. That's good. It's a nice light flavor. Yeah, that nori smell, I really like that a lot.
We hit this pretty nice. It's got it's got that nice mouthfeel to it, a little bit.
Yeah, I like that too. That you feel like that it has a little more body to it than just hey, I'm just have some just some water. There's more to it than that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of that sweetness, that vegetal sweetness to it too. This is really an interesting tea. It's made in Japan, and the tea that they're producing with this is called gyokuro, which means jade dew. Okay, and only about 0.8% of the tea that's made in Japan is gyokuro. It's a shade-grown tea. Okay?
Oh my goodness!
And this is the stem tea that's made from that. So when the leaves come into the factory, there's a machine that actually sees the different color of the stems as compared to the leaves, and blows them aside. Okay, so that the gyokuro itself is only the leaves, and then this one, as you look at it, you can see a little bit of light and a little bit of dark into it. Okay,
yeah.
So that's the twigs, the stems that are that the leaves are attached to. So this is higher in some of the theanines and polyphenols, but lower in caffeine for people. Okay?
Oh, okay.
So it's amazing to see the amount of work that goes into making this particular one.
No kidding. It's beautiful to look at too. There's a little bit of leaf essence in the bottom of the cup, reading the tea leaves, so to speak, and it's actually beautiful to look at. I love the oceany essence here. That nori smell is just great. This one does smell amazing. This
is the white tea from Colombia. Okay. Now I think we brewed this one just a little bit strong, but the color is pretty interesting on that, isn't it? It's not white.
No, it's almost honey, and actually almost has a sweeter honey-like note
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things that kind of surprised me on this particular white tea, is it's got kind of a sweet finish to it.
That's a totally different profile than our first tea. Now, when you said that maybe we brewed this one a little too strong, how does one tell? How does one target a perfect tea brew?
Well, to get it, I mean, each of the different teas, when you learn, you kind of figure out and learn what things to look for in the tea that they're trying to make.
Okay.
Okay. So, for example, if this one had bitterness or astringency to it, that would be a bad thing. Okay. Sometimes, if they're not dried properly, you can see some of the defects when you taste it and things of that nature. So, each of the teas has a different characteristic that you're looking for. Okay. So, that first one, if we found it to be bitter, that kukicha, that would be a problem. It would be been overbrewed or too much tea used or something to that effect. It's really fun. For example, we do a lot of Darjeeling teas. Darjeeling is in the northern part of India. It's in the foothills of the Himalayas.
Okay.
Really cool. So, you're asking about how long the tea plant goes. Well, since it's in the foothills of the Himalayas, it goes dormant during the winter, okay? And then right about this time of the year, they have the first bloom or the first flush of leaves, okay? So at this time, we are actually having samples flown over to us from different gardens, okay?
Oh, my goodness.
And then we will double-blind taste test them to see which ones we really like. So we're looking for certain characteristics in this first flush Darjeeling tea. A little bit of sweetness to it, none of a roasty flavor, a little bit of slight astringency. So different characteristics in that particular tea, okay?
Yeah.
As compared to, say, an Assam tea, which is also from India, which has got a really, you really look for a bold, malty flavor to that one. So just each tea has its own characteristics that you really try to pick.
And who is on your tea tester tasting panel here that brings those in? Obviously yourself, it sounds
That's
like.
one of the
So-
perks of the job,
Yeah.
having to come in and try all these different types of teas. Okay, so certainly myself and a few of my tasters, experienced people, are really there, but all of the smithies get to do that, and actually we require them to do that. Okay,
Yeah.
we actually have a big old training program where they cup each of the teas. They describe the dry leaf, the aroma, the taste of the tea, how it looks, how it finishes, and all that type of a thing. So when they start there, they've got 150 different teas that they've got to start writing down. It is a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah, that sounds daunting.
But it's great to to continue your learning.
All right. I think we're going to go for a third tea. Okay, so as Tim is kindly pouring cups over here, I got a little aroma beforehand. And this is the one that in the bag smelled like buttered popcorn. No kidding. I mean, if you close your eyes, there's a definite butter characteristic, no question.
And there's no flavor added to this. This is actually how the tea is produced. The insects have on this particular tea, the insects have kind of attacked it a little bit, and so it's thrown off this little bit of defense. And that's what kind of generates some of the flavors to that. So that milk profile that you're getting is a natural product of the maker being able to pull that out.
Wow.
And, of course, you can't see this, but the leaves have gone in size from just little tiny things to these great big 2 leaves in a bud.
We're going to grab a live photo here, and then what we'll do is after you kind listeners out there are listening to this show, head over to the Saturday Omaha social media, and we will get a picture of these tea leaves for you here. And then we'll take a before and after photo because they are wildly different. When you look at these on our site here and see what Tim has brought us, you will see that these leaves really did unfurl. I did not expect... I mean, that's 3-4 times its size. So we've got a little bit of stem. Mm-hmm. So this is a whole tea leaf here in this case, right?
Yes.
So, my goodness gracious. Yeah. Oh, wow. So tell me a little bit more about this guy. So the buttery notes come off from a somewhat of a defense mechanism?
It is, yes. Mm-hmm. And you notice, too, that the leaf is still real green. There's just a little tiny bit of brown on the edges.
Yes.
Okay, that means it's very lightly oxidized. Okay, they don't let it oxidize very much. And then you also notice that you still get, when you're drinking it, you still get that nice smooth vegetal flavor to it as well. Okay, so they haven't taken this, because some of the teas they will take and then actually roast over a fruit wood. So then you'll get kind of a toasty, kind of toasted grain hint to it on top of that green flavors underneath.
Wow.
So, yeah.
This is a surprising tea in many ways, just from the scent and the when drinking it, for me, the butter takes a minute to hit, but it's almost like I had a few kernels of popcorn about 30 seconds ago, and I'm like, oh yes, there's still some butter aftery notes there.
Yeah,
that's wild.
You were asking a little bit about how do you know different teas and how do you make them. A few years back, the World Tea Expo had a competition called the Top Tea Infusionist Challenge.
Okay.
And they invited a few of us to participate in this. And what they did is they sent us, I think there's about 6 different teas from all over the world, different styles. Okay. And we had to be up on the stage. And it's kind of like one of those cooking shows, where you're up on the stage, you've got the cameras going, you've got the judges there, except tea judges aren't snarky like they're in some of those cooking competitions. And so they were watching not only for how well we managed to brew it and our ability to come through with that, but also to explain what we were doing, why we were doing it, and how and what to expect when it came out. So we had another style of oolong tea. It was called a rock tea, but it was another oolong tea. And so I was brewing that one and brewed it for about 30 seconds, and it comes up to this nice floral sweetness, and I poured it out and says, you guys don't get that. And then the next one I let go for about a minute and a half, and it had this strong cinnamon bark type of a flavor to it.
Okay.
If you hadn't seen me doing this, you would swear that they were 2 completely different teas.
Oh my goodness.
But the oolongs, if you brew them a number of different times, the different taste profiles come out. And one of the reasons I did it in the manner I did is that's the style, that's the way they drink that style in that particular area.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
So you
so
had
it's great.
so same, no difference in the tea, just changed brewing method, and
Brewed
then
it, brewed it for 30 seconds and then turned around and rebrewed it for about a minute and 30.
interesting,
Okay, yeah.
interesting. Are there any teas that come to mind? Maybe this is one where you would brew it on purpose to create a different flavor depending on what you wanted to do with it.
The oolongs are made to do that. And then there's a tea called pu'er, which is from southern Yunnan province, southern part of China, that also really lends itself to a whole bunch of short infusions. So that's kind of called gong fu style, the traditional way that the Chinese would brew them in their tea ceremony.
That's awesome. And I've heard tell, and maybe you can lend some credence to this, that, and maybe it's an episode of Splendid Table, but anyway, they were talking about tea and that if you're going to sit down and have tea with someone, depending on where you are, that, there's the first brew, the second brew, third, fourth, and you will sit there for a longer period of time, have some nice discussion, and the brew and the flavor changes throughout the conversation and everything.
It's
as
exactly
you go
what
along.
we're describing here. The oolongs and the pu'ers are typically the way you would do that.
Wow. Wow. And so from that then, so we talked about, two brews or whatever, but how many different brews would you get from the same leaf? And does that vary somewhat by brewing time? How does your tea extend there?
Well, you ask all sorts of great questions, so, especially the pu'ers. They are made for multiple infusions, and some of the really expensive ones, you can go 6 or 8 times before you've really exhausted that leaf. These oolong teas, for example, had we done it gong fu style, we probably would have gotten 3 or 4 infusions before we got to the leaves opening up all the way like this.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Oh, so if you would have done a shorter brew time, the leaves would not have opened as much.
Exactly.
And then towards we do a brew. And then they unfurl as your conversation goes on, as you get more flavor, the leaf too grows with you. Kind of literally there. So
we've got a ginseng oolong it's a nice oolong tea that is obviously flavored with ginseng. And that's a perfect one for this because the first time you brew it, a lot of that ginseng comes out, and in subsequent brewings, the ginseng fades away and the tea flavor comes on up. So it's pretty fascinating.
That's wild. And so so for a tea like this, if we did a short brew and the leaf did not open up, if we let that sit, is it pretty much done if you let it sit for a certain amount of time, or is it one of those things where it's like, oh shoot, they're still sitting there, I can pick them up and use them later? How does that work?
Yeah, this one, for example, we ended up with probably going 3 or 4 minutes. So the leaf is pretty well open all the way. Okay, if we'd done it a shorter amount of time, you'd see those leaves still very tightly rolled, and then they would start to open up a little bit and a little bit more. There's a green tea called Jasmine Pearls. Okay, which is a green tea that has been rolled into tight little pearls, hand rolled, by the way.
Oh my goodness!
And then they lay it out in jasmine flowers, and the tea absorbs the aroma from the jasmine. Okay.
Yeah.
And they probably have to change the flowers like 6 times, and so it gets completely absorbed that way. And so the first time you start to drink that, you really get that jasmine hint. And as the jasmine fades away, the tea opens up further and whatnot.
Oh
it's also, since it's a scented tea, it's a great example of how much we can taste is affected by what we can smell. Because if you don't have any sense of smell, that jasmine scent isn't going to be there. You're not going to pick up on any of that. It's just going to be kind of a green tea.
Wow. And it's funny that you're mentioning that because I just have the barest amount of liquid in my cup here, but I'll be darned if there is still not a buttery note still coming up from this cup.
Isn't that
incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Are there teas then that don't do well with a rebrew, that are just a one and done, or can most be brewed multiple times?
When you get into some of the herbals, those typically don't do well with second or third infusions. But most of these will yield a nice second infusion.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a decent tea to start with. It might not be the same taste exactly, but a lot of people will do that second infusion and have a nice cup of tea.
Because you have 135 varieties there, what are some of the things that get added to tea leaves or things to create a totally different flavor profile because we had the leaves that were sitting on the jasmine flower, but are there somewhere maybe the jasmine flower is included in the, I guess, well, you have to tell me, is it called a tea blend or a consist or what?
We do a lot of blends, and of course, Americans drink about 75 or 80% of our tea is black iced tea. Okay, and as we're coming into summertime, we'll have all these great flavors like mango. We have one called Mango Mayhem that's a black tea, or Peach Paradise. It's a black tea. So we will actually add peach flavors and pieces of peach or mango into those teas to come up with the flavorings on top of the teas, which is that's another complete art form, is trying to figure out how to flavor teas. So we had that white tea. That was a straight white tea, but we've got one that's really nice. It's got a peach flavor to it as well. And so you're balancing out the lightness of the tea leaf itself with a nice light peach flavor on top of it. So you don't want one to overpower the other. The one thing that we do stay away from when we're doing our blends anyway is adding sugars. Okay. And that's really kind of fun.
That was going to be a question too, so I'm glad you're bringing this up.
Even our new tea smithies or customers when they first come in, Americans are kind of used to making tea and then dumping sugar into it.
Sure.
Well, tea bag stuff has a tendency to be a little bitter, so I can understand that. But it's really been fun because over a period of time, they'll come in and they'll say, okay, let me have some sugar. I say, no, just try it without it.
Yeah.
And then they'll try the peach tea or the mango tea or even a white tea without it. And they say, well, this is great. I don't need sugar. So that's one of the reasons that tea is so healthy for you. Besides all the health benefits that are inherent to the plant, you're kind of weaning yourself off of that need for sugar. So you're not adding out all that extra stuff.
Yeah. Do the producers that are growing the tea leaves and rolling the tea leaves and doing this, do they also handle the mixtures, the combinations, the blends? Yeah. Or is that something that you're doing in the shop, or how do those come to be when you want a mango tea?
Yeah. Typically, they wouldn't do it there at the factory as a general rule. So they will go off to, we do a lot of our own flavors.
Okay? Oh, okay.
So we make, the mango teas. Our Earl Grey is different than what somebody else's Earl Grey would be like, depending on the bergamot that we put in, the amount of tea, the types of teas, the flavoring, all that type of stuff. So it's a real art form to get that just balanced right.
That's wonderful.
That's fun.
That's wonderful. So what are some of the, maybe more recent ones or maybe remarkable ones that you created at the Tea Smith that are, one of a kind that you're like, wow, this is a really special, tea, or one that you really enjoy?
Yeah. I haven't created a lot of them lately because I've got so many people that are better at it than I am. So we're doing right now, and it's coming up for the summer, especially a mango passion rooibos.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, yeah. So rooibos is a caffeine-free herb that's kind of nutty, very smooth, but full of antioxidants and vitamins, and it flavors very well. So you put a little bit of mango fruit in there, a little bit of passion fruit in there, and it makes a great tea altogether. So that's a fun one that we've been starting with. One of the other things that's gotten really popular around the country is it's called blue butterfly.
Okay.
And that's an herb that actually brews up blue.
Whoa.
Okay. And you'll see a lot of mixologists using it.
Yeah.
Because it adds a really cool color to the drinks. And it's also pH neutral. So if you add a little bit of lemonade or citrus into it, it turns purple.
Oh, my goodness.
But so we're doing a blue butterfly garden. It's got a lot of nice, it's got that herb in there, and it's got a lot of nice lemongrass and a little bit of fruit and different things like that. So that's a fun one that we do as well.
Wow.
Summer Companion's coming up, and that's one that's kind of nice balance of fruit, some currant, a little bit of, not too sweet, but just kind of a really nice balance for iced tea.
Good. I'm glad you said iced tea because that was going to be my next question for you. So we have enjoyed, and today it is very chilly when we're recording, so hot tea is probably the name of the game. But do all teas work well for an iced version, or are some better than others? Or if you want a cold one, what do you look for?
Yeah. It's a matter of taste. Any of these teas can be brewed to be an iced tea. For example, that Katagani Kukicha that we had is really, really interesting as an iced tea. And so we do what we call cold brew, cold fusion.
Okay.
Now they're calling it cold brew.
I like cold fusion. That sounds awesome.
We've been doing it. So it's kind of a nice replacement for doing a sun tea.
Yeah.
People always used to do sun tea because they toss the tea bags in water and put it in the sun, and that way the bitterness that comes out of tea bags didn't come out because it was brewing at a low temperature.
Ah, okay.
I'm always a spoiler though, because if you think of taking wet plant matter and put it in tepid water. Really nice place to grow bacteria. Okay. So the cold brew gets rid of that. Okay, you can take your tea, put it in nice infuser basket, put it in cold water, and stick it in the fridge. And white teas and green teas. A few hours later, you've got a really cool brew. Black teas, it takes a little bit longer, but and different taste components come out of that as well. So yeah, it's really fun. That's one of the fun things about tea is you can kind of control your flavors a little bit.
Yeah.
If you open a bottle of wine, it is what it is, okay? But this tea like the Katagani Kukicha, okay? If you brew it for this amount of time, you get these flavors. If you cold brew it, you get kind of these flavors. The oolong tea, how long you brew it, the different flavors come out. So you can really have a lot of fun reimagining the tea.
Yeah. Oh, and that's neat too, because you were discussing the different brews, the first brew versus second brew, or 30 seconds versus a minute. And now we're talking about different flavors from iced and hot. And so this one, little bag of tea or container of tea could give you, 4 or 5 different, taste sensations, as it were, that way too. If you were going to make, well, I guess hot versus iced, how do you know how much tea to use per how much water so you get the right flavor when you're done?
Oh, yeah. It's actually pretty simple. And in our store, we've got this little card, the 4 perfect ways to make iced tea. As you got the party method, the impatient method, and all that type of stuff. But, I mean, it's really pretty easy. You got, roughly if you're going to make a teaspoon of tea to 8 ounces of water, and that's about it.
Oh, okay. So
that's kind of a rule of thumb. Yeah.
All right. That sounds good. And do you ever mix 2 totally different styles of tea together? Is that very taboo because they're tuned in before you get there?
Whatever works for you is part of the things. It's part of the fun to experiment with certain things. Now, it'd be really tough to take a white tea and put it with a black tea because the white teas need to be brewed at a cooler temperature. The black teas, that type of thing. But, white and green teas, yeah, we've got one called Fruit Lover's Dream. That's actually got obviously some fruit in it, but it's a combination of white and green teas because they brew at a similar temperature and stuff. So, yeah, you can have all sorts of fun with things.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
We've got a lot of customers that do that, too. They'll come in and experiment with different blends on their own and different herbs and fruits and stuff. So
neat.
You can be as creative as you want.
And so if you're getting started brewing tea, so we have a beautiful little tea arrangement here. So we've got a very small infuser basket within a little ceramic pot that has a nice pouring spout and some nice little cups. But what's a good way to get started brewing tea at home? Because I think we discussed that maybe tea bags aren't the best and necessarily. It might be for your application, but in this case, we're talking about loose leaf tea. How do I get my tea and my water into my cup?
Pretty simple, actually. I mean, it's since you don't have a tea bag, you need a basket to hang on to the tea. You saw those little infuser baskets in the brewers here.
Yeah.
Because and they need to be a little bit larger because the tea expands. So you just take and you put, say you've got a 16-ounce cup, okay? You put your infuser basket in there. You put 2 teaspoons of tea in there. You dump your hot water in. Let it sit for the amount of time. Take the basket out, and you're done.
Nice.
So people think that making tea from loose leaf tea is rocket science. It's not really.
Not. And then when you're done, you can just rinse out the basket and
away
tea
you
leaves
go.
can
Yeah.
go away.
And use the tea leaves for your garden because it makes great mulch.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned too with the iced tea, you had the impatient version and then the party version.
Yeah.
How much tea and what do I need? Do I use a big steamer for the party version? How do I make a whole bunch of tea?
Well, you can have a lot of friends over, I guess. Huh? So, for example, the impatient method, and that's kind of the way if you came in and said, "Hey, I want an iced Earl Grey," we would double the amount of tea.
Okay.
Use the same amount of water, and then you take the glass completely full of ice. All right. And as you pour that hot tea over that big glass of ice, it melts the ice and cools the tea, and you've got the right method there.
Ah, gotcha. So your double strength tea then helps because you're going to dilute it a little bit as the water melts.
Exactly. Pretty simple. And then the party method is, we've got like these sacks that'll hold like an ounce of tea each, and that's good for about a gallon type of thing. So if you got a pitcher, you toss an ounce of tea in there and a gallon of water, and away you go.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's pretty simple.
That's wonderful. And I know having been into the Teasmith, I mean, you have a nice selection of very beautiful infusers. You can buy all sorts of different things in teacups and things. But one of the things I really like are actually the pouch size that you have here that you brought today, because you, at last check, you had a sampler size, so you could get just a little bit and try many things. So I guess, is there any recommendations for getting started when you come in and you look at the large wall of 100 different things, 135 teas, and my goodness, what do I pick? How do you guide someone into their first tea or several teas?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's one of the things that we really work on is we ask them a little bit, caffeine or no caffeine. That helps quite a bit
start,
there.
yeah.
But then you start asking them, what kind of flavors do you like? Do you like things strong or do you like them light? Are you looking for something with a little bit of savory hint or fruity hint or those types of things? Are you going to drink it in the morning? So you learn a little bit about a person's taste profile.
Sure.
And what they prefer from there. And then you just start going out. And then, okay, that sounds good. Well, as you mentioned, those little samplers, they'll make 6 or 8 cups. And you can kind of decide what you want. Because one of the things I learned early on, tea goes a long ways, okay?
Yeah.
When I first walked into that tea store, I remember I was always a coffee drinker, and of course, back 18 years ago, $14 a pound or something like that, and you had some really good beans.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I walk into this tea store, and the prices are $25, $50, $100 a pound, and I'm thinking, you're out of your mind. Well, then I started looking. A pound of coffee will make 40-ish cups. Okay, a pound of this True Cream Oolong, which probably sells for $80 a pound, will make 200, 300, 400 cups.
Oh my goodness.
So tea is one of those things where you can drink some of the best teas in the world and still only have a few pennies in your cup.
Yeah. So if you buy a pound of that, you're going to be making tea for
You're going to be drinking some tea.
Gotcha. Ooh, let's say I accidentally or on purpose bought a pound of tea, and I just can't drink 200 cups in a week. How long is my tea going to last?
That was one of the other nice things I liked about it. Coffee, when you roast it, the beans, you've got 3 weeks and they start to fade a little bit. Tea, if properly stored, which means you keep it away from air, light, and aroma.
Okay.
I tell people green tea is about 6 months, black tea is about a year. Okay. And I've actually seen some of them go longer than that.
Wow.
I've seen some teas go 40 or 50 years.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
The puer teas that we kind of talked about, those are actually made to be aged, kind of like laying down a good bottle of Cabernet.
Yeah.
A puer tea cake is actually made to be aged over a period of years or even decades. So
oh my goodness.
It's pretty crazy.
Wow. Are any recommendations as far as thoughts on pairing tea with a meal? Because I guess my classic thought on tea is I'm going to have a cup in the morning or, a cup, resting, reading a nice book and having a nice hot beverage next to me. But, of course, Asian restaurants quite often you can get some nice hot tea with your meal. Yeah. But, any that you might recommend if I'm going to eat some with, I don't know, either a steak or maybe a burrito. I don't know.
Yeah.
What might I have?
You can do just like any food pairing and beverage pairing. You can do something that complements it or contrasts it or whatnot. So you mentioned, the Asian cooking. They use a lot of sesame oils and those types of things.
Yeah.
And so like a green tea, especially like a genmaicha, which is a Japanese green tea with toasted rice.
Yeah.
That really works well with the
with toasted rice?
Yeah.
That sounds wonderful.
It is. You've got that umami flavor, and then you get that roasted flavor from the toasted rice.
Yeah.
Some great stories behind that one as well. If you're drinking something really strong, a lot of times something that'll complement it could be a darker tea or whatnot. A lot of people will use when they're doing like barbecues and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a tea called Lapsang Souchong.
Okay.
It is a black tea that's been smoked over a pine fire.
Ooh.
So you've got this really smoky flavor that actually works great as a meat rub, for example.
Oh my goodness.
So not only drinking it, but actually being a component in cooking.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that as well. I got the opportunity to eat at the Burmese restaurant up in North Omaha, and they do a tea leaf salad.
Yes.
And it's delicious.
Isn't that great?
I had never had such a thing, and it is absolutely wonderful.
Certain places like there and Taiwan.
Oh, okay.
They when I was there, they had like a tempura tea leaf type of a thing.
Really?
And they had tea leaf jello, and so there's all sorts of ways that you can consume it as well.
That's too fun.
Yeah.
That's too fun. Well, and the talking about the one you had mentioned with the roasted rice. What was the name of that one again?
Genmaicha.
Okay, which made me think of matcha, and so I do enjoy like a nice iced matcha latte. So how does that differ a little bit from the teas that we have here, or is it just all in the grind and preparation? What's
So
happening with matcha?
we sell a lot of matcha to a lot of the coffee shops and stuff around as well because it is quite good. It's America's newest health food.
Sure.
It's only been around for 2,000 years. Matcha itself, true matcha, is only made from a tea called tencha in Japan.
Okay.
It's a shade-grown tea, and what they do is they pluck, they let it grow under increasing shade, and then everything concentrates in those little tiny leaves at the top. They take those off and they dry them, and then they grind them with a granite grinding wheel.
Oh my goodness!
Stone, very slow, so it doesn't generate any heat, and down into a very, very fine powder, like a talcum powder.
Yeah.
Okay. And from there, the true matcha, the ceremonial grade, is something to behold. It's just an emerald green type of a thing. It's very silky smooth in the mouth, and of course, since you're consuming the entire tea leaf.
Yeah.
In matcha, you've got more caffeine, more of the polyphenols, more of the antioxidants, all that type of thing. So theoretically, it's the most healthy type as well. The tea that's being used in the lattes is more what we call like a culinary grade.
Okay.
Not quite as fancy as that by a long shot, but it's still got the same health benefits, and it's got that nice sharp flavor. Green tea ice cream, for example.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people have had that. So you get that green and a little bit of sharpness to it that go well with the sweetness. Same thing with your lattes. You get the sweetness from the milk and whatnot. So,
Yeah, my goodness. So preparing a matcha definitely different than what we did here for our hot tea. So for those that haven't got a chance to try matcha or maybe make matcha at home, how does one prepare a nice either hot or iced matcha?
So basically, matcha is not going to dissolve, so you're going to take. So let's say we're going to do a really nice cup of ceremonial matcha. Okay,
Yeah.
You're going to take a nice wide bowl and put about a half teaspoon in there with water not quite on the boiling, and then you've got this bamboo whisk. Okay, it's got like 120 tines on it, cut out of a single piece of bamboo. And what you're really doing there is you're creating a big froth and incorporating the air into your matcha.
Yeah.
Which gives it a little bit of that sweetness and smoothness as well. And the matcha, of course, needs to be suspended because it's just a very finely done powder in there. Okay. And then you would, that's the traditional way, and then you would consume it that way. Okay.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. But the cold matchas, we've got a lot of people who come in and get that. So you just make a nice strong matcha, ice it back down. And of course, you have to consume it because if you leave it set long enough, the matcha is going to all set back down to the bottom.
Gotcha. And then it'll separate and then gotcha. Okay.
So people ask, what's the healthiest tea to drink?
Yeah.
Two things. One, I always say, want something that you like, because no matter how good it is for you, if you don't drink, if you don't like it, you won't drink it. Matcha probably is the healthiest since you're consuming the entire leaf.
The entire leaf.
Yeah. And then we do a lot of herbal infusions too.
Oh, yeah. Well, and with the antioxidants, of course, cancer-fighting properties and things like that. And you had mentioned the polyphenols. Is that correct? So tell me a little bit more real quick about those elements of tea, because I'm not as familiar with those.
I'm a business major, so I don't understand any of that stuff anyway. But so all tea has the polyphenols and the antioxidants.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's got caffeine, since that's the natural defense the plant has. Okay, and then it's got an amino acid called L-theanine that actually helps the brain to focus. So, as the Buddhist monks say, tea will give you a relaxed state of alertness. Okay,
Oh, interesting.
You've got the L-theanine that works on the alpha waves in the brain, and then you've got the caffeine that keeps you energized. Beyond that, then you've got all the different polyphenols and the antioxidants. EGCG is in the green teas and the white teas, and it's been known to fight viral types of things and have a lot of supposed to have really some good effects on cancer and those types of things. So, of course, tea is not a medicine and it won't cure or prevent and all that kind of stuff. So,
Sure.
But as the teas oxidize, then they turn the EGCGs convert into theaflavins and theorubigens, which are also good for antiviral types of things.
If folks were going to find out what is going on with the Tea Smith and keeping track of maybe some of these new teas that are coming out, how does one keep track of what is happening at the Tea Smith?
Well, we partner with a lot of the restaurants and coffee shops in town, so there's always some fun things going on there. A lot of the mixologists have been using our teas in some of the drinks that they've been doing.
Yeah.
But to really know what's going on at the Tea Smith, we've got a really nice website. It's really easy to remember. It's called theteasmith.com. Instagram.
Easy.
Okay. Facebook is The T Smith. Instagram is The T Smith. Okay. And so we keep those going on all the time. We'll have blogs in there. We've got a newsletter that lets people know, what's being featured. A lot of blog information to keep people educated. A lot of history about tea as well. And then we've always got events going on. In February, we did our tea and chocolate pairing.
Ooh,
yeah,
nice.
that's always a great one.
Yeah.
In March, the end of March, we're doing a green tea 101. So we're going to do like 5 or 6 different teas, green teas from all over the world.
Oh, neat.
And then in April, I believe we are going to be doing the teas of India.
Oh, fun.
So there's a big variety there as well.
Neat. So with like the Tea 101, because I love educational opportunities. So is kind of like a tea overview tasting class informational type thing? And
yeah, we do a lot of that. So on the regular Tea 101, we will do a little bit of the history of tea and what it is, and then we'll do a white tea, a green tea, an oolong tea, and a couple of black teas, and kind of compare and contrast and talk a lot about the things that we hit on today is, the processing, the different flavors, the health benefits, and that type of thing. So, tea, it's kind of like wine in a way.
Yeah.
You can, or beer or whatever, you can go walk in and say, I want a red wine, or, I want a black tea, and that type of thing. Or you can walk in and say, I want a Cabernet Sauvignon from Camus in 1995, or I want a second flush Darjeeling from the Aria estate. And so you can go enjoy just a nice black tea. You can go as far as you want into the gourmet side of things, and that's one of the things that a lot of our people like, and it really attracted me is there's always something to learn, always something going on.
wow. Do you, Tim Smith, have a favorite tea?
It's like saying, do you have a favorite child?
I figured that might be the answer. But
So I really do enjoy the Japanese green teas. That's probably the first place I was exposed to really good tea.
Yeah.
And then I drink a lot of oolongs because, of the wide taste profile there. But, also being a coffee drinker, I'm used to that strong flavor in the morning.
Sure.
So maybe our blacksmith blend or an Irish breakfast or this Bylin that we've got here, something a little stronger to just kind of that mental thing to wake you up or fool you, I guess.
Yeah. I was thinking, too, when you were mentioning drinking tea in the morning, how does the caffeine level, how does the caffeine level compare from a tea to a coffee? I assume that varies by tea, of course, but a standard black cup of coffee, if I'm looking for a similar caffeine level, what might I try in a tea?
That's a great question because tea itself has roughly half the caffeine in the cup as does a cup of coffee.
Okay.
But the interesting thing is the caffeines in coffees aren't attached to anything, so they hit the nervous system right away. Okay?
Oh.
That's why you get that quick pickup, and then sometimes you get the drop. The teas, the caffeines in teas are attached to those polyphenols that enter the body through the digestive system. So you get a steady, slow release of the energy as compared to the ups and downs. That's one of the things that a lot of people like about drinking tea.
Wow. Oh, so that was that state of, what did you say, a relaxed alertness that somebody might. That is very interesting. So you could have a similar caffeine level, but your release is a little bit different. So very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. The science and taste of tea everywhere.
Who would have thought?
Who'd have thought? This has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for coming to talk with me and brewing 3 cups of tea, teaching me about this. I truly had no idea that tea could smell like butter. We had the one that had more the nori profile to it, and everything's been so different. Our second tea, I believe, had more of the honey color and a honey note to it, and we have traveled from whence does each of those teas hail? Are they all from the same country there, or are they the 3 that we had? Or
no, the one we had was from Japan. The other one was from Colombia, South America.
That's right. Okay.
And then the other one was from Taiwan.
Perfect. So we actually traveled throughout the world in our conversation here, which is
and we didn't even get out of breath traveling that far.
We didn't, and we still have some more tea for later. So this is fantastic.
Absolutely.
Well, again, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for teaching all of us and for spending time with me. Thank you so much.
We appreciate that. It's been a lot of fun.
Fantastic.
We'll see you soon.
Absolutely, and we will sign it off here on Saturday Omaha, and this is Dave Zorko sitting with Tim Smith of the Tea Smith, and as we say, until we eat again, or in this case, until we drink again, stay hungry or thirsty. Bye-bye.
Our show is recorded and produced by Saturday Omaha. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook as well as email SaturdayOmaha@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and stay hungry.
Saturday Omaha.
Eat this.